four different things, is it a step by step process or they can be pursued parallelly?
So I share my framework, which is to do it, um, I address them one at a time, but it's very personal, right?
Hmm.
So you may read the book and understand the framework and say, you know what? I would like to start with this one,
Hmm.
whatever that might be. I wouldn't say you have to follow the order because something may be more important in your life today than for someone else. But I do encourage the following things. I always tell people don't go after the biggest weight first, that dead weight first, right? Because if you try to go for the biggest one, it may be really hard. And if you don't make it, it's discouraging. Start with something that's relatively easy because that helps to build momentum. And as you build momentum, you go from the not so difficult things to the more challenging ones. And then you go for the ones where you say, this is a sixer, right? It's hitting it out of the park. And the second thing I tell people is don't remove clutter in too many areas of your life at the same time. Focus on one or two at a time. Because it's human nature to get excited and go, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to remove this and build on that. And then next thing you know, it's taking up a lot of your energy and time because you chose 10 things when you should have in reality chosen one or two. And then you go, oh my God, this is overwhelming. And then before you even get any results, you go back to your previous self and your zone of comfort and you made no progress. So pick something that's not too difficult and definitely focus on one or two max items at a time.
Thank you. I would like to say that this is something similar to initially reaching the summit of a mountain which is not that taller and then increasing your leveling up from there. Yeah. Have you ever thought about living your life to the fullest of your potential, but again felt sad because you're not able to do that? And then this podcast will help you master your strategic decluttering in your life in four different dimensions and achieve the maximum efficiency in your life. And for that, we have Mr. Saahil Mehta, an entrepreneur, a passionate mountaineer, and also the author of the book Break Free. And he's here to share with us some of the steps to reach the summit faster. Hi, Sahil, how are you?
I'm great, Santosh. Doing fantastic.
Thank you. So I hope that you are having a great day. So Sahil, I just got curious about your mountaineering journey. Okay, because I am someone who feels that maybe mountaineering requires a lot of physical agility and physical strength and things like that. So can you just share about your mountaineering experiences?
So, Santosh, I love what you just said. These were kind of the questions that were running through my head and probably prevented me from taking that action, taking that step. But my mountaineering journey really began as a teenager. But in as a teenager, it was more a thought. It didn't materialize into anything. And it was only in 2009, I believe it was, just after I got married, I said, it's only a matter of time before we have children. If I don't take this step now, I don't know when I'm going to get that opportunity. My fitness is good. I got to do it now. And so I shared with my wife one of my dreams, which was to, go to the base of Mount Everest, Everest Base Camp.
Hmm.
And to my surprise, she said she would join me, which was fantastic. And then we said, okay, now that we know that it's going to be a certain amount of months away, what is the training program that we need to follow to ensure that the trip becomes a little bit easier? So whether it's carrying extra weight on our back in a
Hmm.
backpack and walking around with that, whether it's walking for many hours of the day, whether it's really working on those leg muscles on an incline, to be able to climb up the mountain. So it's really identifying what is required to get there rather than saying, oh, but will I be strong enough? Will the weather be good enough? Will I be capable? These are all the barriers that were in our heads, that we had to filter away and remove and say, you know what, we're going to do this.
Okay, so that's great, quite interesting. So, Sahil, if I can ask you, what exactly it takes to conquer a trek? Is it your physical agility or your mental stability? What accounts to more?
I would say that depending on the difficulty, I would break it down. So initially, for sure, you need to have a certain amount of physical strength, but not as much as people think. I've seen people, with what you may call average fitness getting to the tops of mountains. I've seen people in their 80s getting to the tops of mountains. So that clearly says that it's not the physical ability that's most important. Yes, it helps. Don't get me wrong. The better your physical ability, the easier the journey will become, but it should not take away from you reaching your summit. The mental ability, for sure, I would say is a larger part. You
Hmm.
know, as we discussed in your previous question, we have a lot of demons or a lot of voices in our head that say, let's go back to our comfort zone. Because let's not forget, our brain is functioning to protect us. So whenever we think we're going to go into danger, the brain will say, take a step back. It's comfortable here. You can enjoy it over here. But I can tell you, on the mountains, during my toughest moments, when my physical strength felt like it was almost gone, my mind took over and my mind said, we are going to do this. And then I'd like to add another layer, which is a higher purpose, a higher belief. Because at some point, even the mind said, I'm done. But it was that higher purpose, that reason why you did it, that kept me going and allowed me to reach my summit. So, physical ability, yes, it helps, but not essential. Strong mind, definitely very important. And ask yourself, what are you doing this for? You know, if you have a clear goal or purpose in mind, that helps to give you that extra push when it's most needed.
Thank you. So it is like 80% skill set, 80% mindset, and 20% skill set. Thank you. So moving forward, if I have to ask you, since you have been an entrepreneur as well, can you draw some parallels between reaching the summit on a mountaineering trip and reaching the summit of being an entrepreneur or a businessman?
Fantastic question, Santosh. I would say that there are a lot of parallels. Let me give you one as an example, and maybe even more. When you're climbing a mountain, you have to carry a certain amount of weight with you, right? Your
Hmm.
baggage. Now, that could be physical baggage as well as mental baggage. Now, I can tell you from experience that the more baggage that you have that does not serve purpose, right? If something serves purpose or is functional in your life, it's a different story. But if something doesn't serve purpose or doesn't have any function, carrying that extra weight means you require more energy, and it means it's going to take longer. And with those two, the chance of you reaching your summit are decreased. So it's the same here on ground zero. We have all this clutter, whether it's physical or mental, that we're carrying with us that doesn't really serve any function or purpose in our lives. And if we continue to carry that with us, reaching our own personal summits becomes harder, takes longer, and we may not even reach that top, right? We may not reach the summit. So there's a lot of analogies between the mountain and your life here at ground zero.
Hmm. So from ground zero to reaching the summit, it takes a lot of removing clutter. And this is when I just want to ask you about your book that you have written. Can you just throw some light onto the book that you have written?
Sure. So, Santosh, I best explain it with how I came to write it. It was the spring of 2016, and we were on our way to the magical island of Ibiza. So, myself and seven friends. And as we were waiting at the gate at Barcelona airport, I turned to one of my friends, Vinny, and I said, how can we make this trip amazing? How can we take it to the next level? And we came up with two words that would completely change how the next 4 days would be. And that was no judgment. We shared that with the rest of the group, and everyone agreed. Now, what happened there was magical because for me, it's as if a huge burden was lifted off my shoulder. I didn't have to be someone that I wasn't, I didn't have to impress anyone. I could just be me. And so my next 4 days were filled with joy that was so euphoric. Just to give you an example, we were dining one evening at a restaurant called Leo, where they have live entertainment and they have different acts on stage while you're having your dinner. So we had a table right next to the stage, and during one of the acts, one of the dancers, she pointed at me and called me up on stage. Now, previously, I would have probably shrunk into my chair or looked the other way, but this time I said, hey, no judgment, let's go for it. And it was a liberating experience. And that's how I felt over the next 4 days. So when I came, as I was flying back to Dubai, I wanted to note down and journal my thoughts because I wanted to share it with my wife, Ekta, before, while it was still fresh in my mind. And as I started writing, tears started going down my face. And that's when I was curious. I was wondering what's going on. And I realized that I couldn't recognize myself anymore. I had been wearing so many masks over the years, especially the mask of must be seen as Mr. Nice Guy. So I was always focusing on pleasing others, but I ignored myself. And that created a lot of clutter in my life. And before we continue, let me just define what clutter is as per my definition. Clutter is nothing more than shunned confrontations. I was shunning confrontation with my health, my mind, with people, and it's almost as the best way to explain it is imagine a ball and chain wrapped around your leg, right? And you're dragging that everywhere you go. I had lots of these, and I was trying to climb my summit, the mountain and reach my summit, but I had all this extra weight. And that's when I said, I need to make myself the number one priority, and I'm going to identify the clutter in my life and start breaking free from it one at a time. So as I started doing this, friends started noticing a difference, and they would come to me and ask questions about my transformation. So I started to share because it was a personal journey. And one evening at a private event, I was standing at the bar, and a friend of mine came over to me and he said, Sahil, what you've shared has transformed my life. Don't keep this to yourself, share with others. So I started to share, and then the next thing I knew, I was on a flight to Nairobi in Kenya to present to a group of very successful entrepreneurs on my framework of breaking free. And
Hmm.
that's when I realized, I said, you know what? I can't be everywhere at once. And if I want to share this message with the world to help other people remove the clutter in their life, I need to provide it in a format which is easily accessible, which will also not incur a big cost. And that's why I wrote the book. So it can help more people out there to remove the clutter in their lives, to break free, which ultimately brings peace within.
So, Sahil, I just got a couple of questions here. That is when you said that just focus on myself, don't worry what others are thinking, and don't focus on others. So, with this respect, so I just also want to ask one more thing, that is, Most of the times, even I face self doubt. Okay, everyone faces self doubt. So, is is self doubt a kind of clutter that we carry? And if it is so, then how do we remove that?
Absolutely. Look, we're all human. We all, I mean, I carry self-doubt even after having removed clutter in my life. But there's two things here, right? There's always those voices inside your head, and there's always the one which is going to be, fear, um, anger, resentment, uh, and a lot of the negative emotions, right? And you have this other voice in your head that's love, that's passion, that's purposeful, that's encouraging. And it's I don't know if you've heard this about the story of two wolves. We basically have these two wolves in our mind, and they're constantly fighting with each other, right? They're constantly fighting with each other. And when this story was shared, a little boy asked, he said, which wolf wins?
Hmm.
And the answer is, it's the wolf you feed. So yes, you will have self-doubt. Yes, you will have, fear. You'll have a lot of things that will circle through your mind. But if you keep feeding that, that's the one that's going to grow and win. And it's not about removing it. You can't remove something. You just fuel the other wolf. And as you fuel the other wolf, the voice of self-doubt gets smaller and smaller and smaller.
Hmm.
It will always be there, but it will be a smaller voice, and over time will become less significant.
How to feed that other wolf?
Great question. What I always share with my audience, with my clients, in my talks, is be aware, because many times you're not even aware that this is going on, right? So you just consciously or subconsciously, you're moving through life, and these thoughts are going through your mind, and you didn't really pause. You just kept it, let it flow. And just, you said, oh my God, why am I thinking these things? Does this mean I should step back? Does it mean I'm not capable? Does it mean I'm not smart enough? I don't have enough money? But if you become aware that these thoughts are coming, then you press pause, right? You press pause and you go, okay, why am I feeling this? What is the source of this? It's not wrong to feel these emotions, but what is the source? Is it something that happened in the past? In many cases, it usually is. What was that incident that happened in the past? Was it a teacher telling you that you're not going to succeed in life? Is it your parents saying something that if you don't study hard, you're not going to get a good job? I don't know. There could be so many reasons, but usually it's linked to something in the past. Identify what that is and process it, right? Address that moment in your life in the past, because until you don't face it and break free from it, you're going to continue to carry that clutter everywhere you go. And no matter how much you succeed, whatever your definition of success is, you will always have self doubt. I know people who have become millionaires. They have a great family, they have great health. I mean, from the outside, it looks like a pretty darn good lifestyle. And they still have self doubt because there's something that happened in the past that they haven't faced, and they're still carrying it with them. So
Thank you.
yeah, you got to face it. You got to find out what it is, but that only happens through awareness, right? Spending time with yourself and asking, where is this feeling or thought coming from?
Yes. So that is how we tackle self doubt. Now, Sahil, if I have to ask you, you spoke about baggage. Okay, so this baggage, what are the kinds of baggage that people carry?
So in my break free framework, I've kind of defined clutter into four different areas.
Hmm.
Starting with the self, I break it into two parts. The first is the mind, right? Whether it's Are we accepting ourselves? How are we starting each day? How much worrying are we doing even in things that we can't control? What is our number two priority? I say number two priority because the number one priority should be you. So what or who is your number two priority? It's really defining and concluding in these areas. Once we finish the mind, we move on to the body. Something that's beautiful about the body is it's a natural healing machine. Okay, if you ever get a small cut, you'll realize you don't need to take any medication, you don't need to go to a doctor, your body heals itself. Now the problem is in today's world is that we're doing a lot of things that make it harder for the body to heal, which is why you're seeing immunity go down, more sicknesses and illnesses. It's predominantly lifestyle based. But if you get better food, quality ingredients, if you're getting better sleep, if you're more aware of how your body is reacting to certain things, if you practice fasting, exercise, various things that can allow you to accelerate your healing, all of a sudden your body starts working at an optimal level, and you just feel great. I always tell people you can't put a price on feeling great. So once we tackle the self, which is the mind and the body, then we move on to the third step, which is people. Right? We have a lot of relationships that we want to declutter. Now, declutter doesn't just mean remove people from your life, because yes, that might be possible for a few, but you might have clutter. And by clutter, I mean there's something between you and a loved one that is preventing that relationship from being strong. It could be a parent, it could be a child, a spouse, another family member, a close friend, people you actually care about. And so I share tools on how you can remove the clutter between the two of you so that you become closer to one another. And then finally, the last stage is we move on to the physical world of material things, right? So removing the clutter in our lives, a lot of people keep wanting more, but the reality is we live in a world of abundance. I remember when I was on the mountain with my fellow climbers, I asked a question one day that, what do you miss the most? Apart from family, right? Because everyone misses their family. But I said, what do you miss the most? And the three most common answers were a warm room, running water, and a bed. And I thought to myself, wow, when was the last time I was grateful for these things? I'm always saying, I need this, I need that, I want another, I need a new car, a new watch, new clothes, new this. But in reality, I have everything that I need. These are all wants, these are all desires. And once that was clear in my head, I started removing all the things that no longer serve function or purpose in my life. And Santosh, the best thing is, I gave it to people who could use it and benefit from it. And that put a huge smile on their face. So that's the final stage that we get to. And once we declutter from all areas of our life, we can expect to live life with love rather than fear. We get to have more clarity and focus. We have stronger relationships. We have more time. We're achieving more. We're getting to our summits faster. I mean, the benefits just go on and on.
So all these four different things, is it a step by step process or they can be pursued parallelly?
So I share my framework, which is to do it. Um, I address them one at a time, but it's very personal, right? So you may read the book and understand the framework and say, you know what? I would like to start with this one, whatever that might be. I wouldn't say you have to follow the order because something may be more important in your life today than for someone else. But I do encourage the following things. I always tell people don't go after the biggest weight first, that dead weight first, right? Because if you try to go for the biggest one, it may be really hard. And if you don't make it, it's discouraging. Start with something that's relatively easy because that helps to build momentum. And as you build momentum, you go from the not so difficult things to the more challenging ones. And then you go for the ones where you say, this is a sixer, right? It's hitting it out of the park. And the second thing I tell people is don't remove clutter in too many areas of your life at the same time. Focus on one or two at a time. Because it's human nature to get excited and go, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to remove this and build on that. And then next thing you know, it's taking up a lot of your energy and time because you chose 10 things when you should have in reality chosen one or two. And then you go, oh my God, this is overwhelming. And then before you even get any results, you go back to your previous self and your zone of comfort and you made no progress. So pick something that's not too difficult and definitely focus on one or two max items at a time.
Thank you. I would like to say that this is something similar to initially reaching the summit of a mountain which is not that taller and then increasing your leveling up from there. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. So, Sahil, how do we endure? How do we show that endurance in this process?
The it requires patience, right? It requires patience. I mean, when we're climbing a mountain, you see the summit on day one, but guess
Hmm.
what? You're not reaching it till day six, for example. When we did some of the tallest mountains in the world, whether it was Kilimanjaro in Africa or the tallest in Europe, which is Elbrus, and recently we did one in Peru, which was over 20,000 feet. You see the peak from the ground in many cases, and it just looks so far away. And you might think, oh my goodness, can I actually get there? I don't know. And then, again, some of those doubts start coming in and this and that. But you have to remind yourself that it's about taking that one step at a time. And then at the end of the first day, we're like, oh, wow, we actually just did all that. Now, getting to the peak seems that little bit, no, I wouldn't say easier, but reachable. After day two, we're like, oh my goodness, I didn't realize I could do so much in one day. I'm already at this point on the mountain. And now the peak is getting closer and so forth. Day three, day four, day five, and day six, we're at the summit. But it's because we kept one foot in front of the other.
Hmm.
And to do that, it requires a few qualities. It requires humility, it requires courage, and it requires discipline. But you have to just tell yourself one step at a time, one step at a time. Another great example I can give you is when I do my fitness training, I have a trainer who's sometimes comes up with crazy ideas. And when it went from 2019 to 2020, so this was, a little over a year ago, he said, why don't we do some exercise to bring in the new year? I said, okay, sure. What should we do? He said, let's do 2,020 meters of lunges, right? 2.02 kilometers of lunges. I said, whoa, you're crazy. And
Yes.
then I said to myself, wait, I'm removing clutter in my life. Why am I limiting myself? Why don't I say yes and then figure out how to get it done? And so I started training. And it was all about just that, because it was all about that one lunge in front of the next and just doing it slowly but surely. And there's a group of us that did it. So I was not the only crazy one there. And we all completed it. But it required humility, discipline, and courage, and the faith in oneself.
Yes, I think that's quite interesting and crazy as well. So, who is your inspiration?
My inspiration, wow. One of the people that is very inspiring in my life is Mahatma Gandhi.
Hmm.
And the reason I say that is because he fought for a cause which was greater than himself. And that was his driving force, right? He didn't think too much about himself. He thought about the people, the country, but it was all for peace, right? I mean, we live in a world where there's a lot of violence. And I found through my process is that when you have a lot of clutter in your life, it also causes a lot of internal violence. Because if you're shunning confrontation, it means you're holding it inside, and that's creating violence. And as I started to remove the clutter in my life, the violence started to go down, and I became more peaceful. And when I became more peaceful, I always say when there's peace on the inside, you get peace on the outside. And that's a big driving force for me, because if I can help remove the clutter in your life, Santosh, and in everyone else's life that's out there through the framework that I've developed, then everyone would have more peace on the inside, which would ultimately result in peace, ahimsa, on the outside, which is ultimately what my life's purpose is.
What is inside us will definitely reflect around us. That is a great take, Sahil. So we are reaching the end of this podcast. So let me ask you one last question. What are your plans for 2021, and what is that one thing that you want to leave the audience with?
So my plan on 2021 is just to create more awareness and get the word out there. They always say that you might have great content, but if nobody is able to access it, then it just remains great content. So I'm hoping that this message gets to a wide audience and that it can impact their lives in a positive way and build on that community. And if I had to leave everyone with a message, it's a story of a sailor. A sailor went to the captain and he said, Captain, when are we going to get our pay? And the captain said, you'll get your pay tomorrow. So the next morning, the sailor wakes up and he's excited and he goes to the captain with a big smile and he goes, Captain, can I get my pay today? And the captain looks at him and says, Hey, didn't I tell you you'll get your pay tomorrow? So in reality, there is no tomorrow. There is only the now, the present. Let's stop procrastinating. Let's not say that we're going to do this one day. Let's make today day one. And I encourage each and every listener, whatever you had in your mind that you wanted to remove, a certain clutter in your life, start that process today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sahil. It was great interacting with you. So, dear viewers or listeners, however you are accessing this medium, just make sure that you visit www.thebreakfreebook.com and access the content that will help you break free from all your fears and let you reach the summit. Thank you so much. And if you have been liking the kind of content that I am bringing, please subscribe to my channel, Santosh Speak Up. Thank you and see you soon.